Indianapolis at Atlanta. We have got a new quarterback in Atlanta, Tom. Does that change anything for you?
Not really. I mean, the decision to go back to Taylor Heineke was confirmation that Arthur Smith is absolutely sweating his job, and rightly so, because you don't make that decision. He went from Desmond Ridder to Taylor Heineke, realized Taylor Heineke wasn't the guy, then went back to Desmond Ridder, and then now is benching Desmond Ridder. Any head coach who had job security wouldn't have done that. They would have accepted what they'd made the decision on. They know that team players aren't going to have any respect for decision-making processes like that. And now he's done that. And I'm back in on Bijan Robinson this week. We've seen, yes, last week was painful when he fumbled and then he didn't get another touch after that point for the rest of the game. But what we've seen from Smith, he likes to push back against fantasy football and the big media talking about how he isn't using Bijan Robinson enough and stuff. But if you go back to last year, when people were upset about Kyle Pitts' usage, quite often he'd talk about how, it was situations, blah, 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 didn't call for it and everything. And then the next week, in the opening drive, Kyle Pitts would get like 3 or 4 targets before then fading into nowhere again. He does seem to sneakily feel the need to try and get things right. And I think that you look at what the Colts have done this year. They've allowed the third most fantasy points to running backs. They've allowed 7 games of 17 plus points to running backs, including Chase Brown, Joe Mixon, and Derrick Henry in the last 3 weeks alone. So this feels like a get-right spot for Bijan Robinson. I appreciate not everybody feels the ability to put as much faith in it as I do. I'm definitely not feeling confident, but I've got an FFPC best ball team where I am the only team in a group of 12 to have Bijan Robinson, and it feels like it could really be a difference maker there. I don't
trying to talk it into existence, Tom.
Got to believe it. I don't really have any kind of faith in Drake London because when we saw Tyler Heineke in the starting lineup, he had a 55% completion rate this year. And on the other side, I think everything kind of hinges on Michael Pittman. Since Brock Purdy cleared concussion protocol in the space of a week, there have been more and more cases where players are clearing it quicker. I think that if Michael Pittman gets back out there after taking such an egregious hit like he did, then from now on, we just assume everyone can clear it and get back within a week. Michael Pittman, I would worry about him a bit because we've seen the Falcons be able to dedicate coverage at time and take away teams' top options. Alec Pierce, 1 top 45 weekly finish. Josh Downs, I mean, it's just been pretty blah.
Disappeared.
The whole.
He's
disappeared. He had a couple of nice. Yeah, had a couple of nice games. The game in Germany where he was kind of injured a bit, and then it's just not really been there. But if Jonathan Taylor's healthy, I'd absolutely play him. Some of his quotes this week talked about how he was a bit concerned about how he'd be able to work in the pass protection role. So it might be a little bit too thin to play him in cash games, but for tournaments, I think you can absolutely play him because the Falcons have struggled against running backs catching the ball this season. But generally speaking, this one kind of comes back to Bijan Robinson and not a whole lot else for me.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting if Pittman plays. Obviously, we talk about Atlanta taking away those number 1 options. I think Indianapolis is almost a slightly different beast in that they rely so heavily on RPOs. They're on RPOs at the highest rate of the league. Michael Pittman leads the league in first read rate on RPOs. So it could be that AJ Terrell's almost would struggle to take away Pittman because it's not a normal passing route.
No, that's a great point. That
in terms of it's a lot of drags, it's a lot of slants, it's a lot of quick get the ball out because it's not a traditional passing route. But that being said, I still struggle to see him clearing concussion protocol. And yeah, if he does, fine. If he doesn't, I don't think I'd want to start any piece of this passing offense. Alec Pierce, somebody will probably be talking him up, but let's be honest, he's just out there to get his cardio and go home. He's there's no point to him actually being a receiver. He just runs deep every time.
So, I mean, Alec Pierce has been one of those players, but like, I think unless you're watching Colts games, you probably don't realize how much he's on the field. But he averages a 94.5% of the snaps. He is out there constantly. His route participation averages 94.5%. Like, he played 100% of the snaps last week, but it just doesn't matter whatsoever. Like, even when he'll come in with weeks where he's got like a 15% target share, which in some offenses you can get by on. But on the Colts, there's just not really much of a passing game outside of Michael Pittman that it really matters. Like Alec Pierce is just one of those players that people want to talk themselves into happening. But in this iteration of the Colts, it's just not going to be worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a yards per route run rate of 0.84. The only guys worse are Marcus Valdes-Scantling, Allen Robinson, Terrace Marshall, Van Jefferson. Like, it's not exactly great receivers that you're putting in that sort of territory. So
there's a lot of players there that wasted breath has been spent on.
Exactly that. Jonathan's in the chat, though. He's got a question for us. This is quite a tough one, I think. Sit one out of Walker, Barkley, Chandler, or Singletary. Full PPR with an extra 0.2 points per rush.
What's your lean on that? Let's just give me 1 second.
I think for me, how I've got it ranked is I've Walker would be the one I'd sit. So I've got Chandler. Chandler is the smash play, which seems a ridiculous sentence to say right there. I've then got it ranked Barkley 19, Singletary 20, Walker 23. So yeah, it's close, but I would sit Kenneth Walker.
So I was just pulling up my DFS deep dive article, which our Discord members get, because just before we jumped on, I wrote up Kenneth Walker. And the reason I did was that last week he had 22 touches to Zach Charbonnet's 4. But also, this Titans run defense, that's what we've been known for all season. But last week, they allowed 170 yards to Devin Singletary. And the week before that, they allowed Devin Achane and Raheem Mostert to combine for about, I think it was 172. So I think I would just lean to Walker over Singletary, who's playing the Browns this week.
Yeah, I think it's close. I think, it's probably not the most helpful answer that we've given you different responses there, Jonathan, but hopefully we've given you the information that you can make your own decision. Lewis is back. So he's saying, he's just asked us a question in Discord. Sorry, Lewis, we couldn't answer it. We're live. But he's asking, would you sell Cooper Kupp for a 25 first, having just been knocked out of the playoffs? For me, I probably would. I'd try and get a sweetener on top before saying that, though. I think maybe that's a little bit light. So maybe I'd try and get, whether that be a second or maybe a couple of thirds, something like that thrown in. But if that is genuinely the best you can do and you have asked every single owner remaining in the playoffs, maybe I probably would pull the trigger.
I feel like I probably don't have a good answer here because I was so high on Cooper Kupp coming into this season. I know Lewis, being a Rams fan, probably has Puka Nacua on his roster, which is making it easier for him to sell him. I just think that there might be another good sell window for Cooper Kupp at some point. And if it means waiting another week towards the finals, there we go. He's got Puka and Kupp. I think if you know the league and you know that's probably the best you're going to get, then I would take it. But if you feel like in a week's time, if one of these rosters in the semi-final looks a little bit flimsy and could come back to you in a week needing a little bit more, then I'd possibly just wait out another week.
Yeah, I think if you're either selling Kupp now or you're having to hold him until August, because we know that every offseason, everyone in the Dynasty world becomes complete ageist, and we know that his value is going to plummet. So I think that if you're not selling him now, you're basically saying, right, I'm waiting until August, September time when we get into redraft mode and kind of go from there.